Okay, good. So Immanuel Kant, part 1 and 2, right? We're going to start with the section on happiness. Okay, so let me summarize a little bit again, everything that you guys listened to last time, and in general, what is Kant doing? So in general, remember, we are in the era which is post-Christian, right? So we're leaving behind the relics of Christianity. We're leaving behind any type of religious authority, and we're left in a vacuum, right? And so both Hobbes and Kant are trying to fill that vacuum, right? Now that we don't have the church anymore, now we don't have God, we don't have scripture, we don't have any type of religious authority to tell us what to do. What are we going to do? Are we going to become savages, right? And tear each other's throats, right? Or so Hobbes, remember, and you all did a good job. I saw really good work this week from everybody. Yeah, Hobbes believes, right, we will tear each other's throats, you know, we will be at each other's throats. And so we need to have a very strong state, right? We need to have a very strong sense of the state who will curb our wolf-like tendencies, right? Man is a wolf for man. And so we need that. And so, beyond the state, right, he also uses seduction and tells us, you know, if you're going to be moral, it's actually going to be better for you, right? So he's giving the argument of happiness. He's telling us, you know, he's trying to seduce us into becoming moral. So he's saying, you know, if you're a moral person, everything will be safer, everything will be better, and we will have a better, happier society, and you will be happier. So he's appealing to the wolf, right? Now, Kant, of course, disagrees, right? Because for him, appealing to the wolf is not really dealing with the wolf, right? And for him, his goal is to really crush the wolf in us, right? And not even crush it. I don't think that's right. It's not crushing the wolf. It's awakening us to the other part of us. Am I lagging? Am I lagging? Is this really?
It did for a bit, but I think it's okay now.
Okay.
I don't know. Is it you guys too, or is it just my computer?
It's just you?
Yeah,
I
I
think
saw
a
the
little
lag
bit here and
too.
there.
Thought I was the only one for a second.
Okay, so in general, I'm okay?
I think you're fine, miss.
Okay, phew, okay. Where was I? Okay, yes. So Kant, right, of course, disagrees that we're only wolves, right? And so I correct myself. He's not about crushing the wolf. No, he's about awakening us to the part in us which is naturally moral. So this is the key idea here, right? For Kant, all of us have within ourselves a part which longs to be moral, which desires the good, right? That's what he calls a goodwill, by the way, right? For those of you who stumbled on that word, right? The goodwill that he mentions in the beginning is simply all of us have an inherent desire for the good, not just for happiness, right? Like the wolf. The wolf is only interested in happiness, but we have a higher desire. We have a moral desire for what Kant calls the good, which we still have to figure out what that is. What does that mean, the good, right? Because most of us, we tend to think what is good is what makes me happy, right? So what is this good, which is not that which makes me happy, right? So we're going to figure this out, especially in the second hour, right? But in general, right, Kant is all there to help us awaken to this other voice, right? Which he calls the voice of reason, which I can translate in you guys' terms like the voice of conscience, right? For example, this is this voice in us, which we call the voice of conscience. Kant calls it the voice of reason. And let's be clear, right? Reason for Kant is not having to do with the intelligence. It's not having to do with, you know, your brain and your problem-solving capabilities. It's something deeper, it's something moral, right? Okay, I see that my internet connection is unstable. Do you guys feel it, or am I still okay? No? Okay, should be okay. All right, so this whole book, right, of course, Kant has written not to tell us what to do. Let me be very clear, right? You can jot this down that, so first of all, make sure you have jotted down that for Kant, we have, part of us is inherently moral, right? And what he's trying to do, so that's the second part, what he's trying to do is awaken us to this other voice, right? Which is the voice of reason versus the voice of instinct, right? So remember, there are two voices in us, two forces. Make sure you review this, right? The voice of instinct, which is interested in happiness, and the voice of reason, which is interested in the good. So make sure you get these 4 points. It's very important. I said that in the introductory lecture, right? And so this whole book is there to help us to awaken to the voice of reason. So make sure you jot this down. Kant is not going to tell us what is moral. He's not going to give us a list of how we should act. He's not going to be there telling us what to do, ever. All he's doing in this book is trying to attune us to our own voice, right? The only person who can tell you what to do is yourself, your higher self, right? And this, incidentally, is what he calls duty. A few of you also stumbled on the word duty, right? Duty for Kant is not duty to a country or duty to a superior. You have no duty, and let me be very clear with this. For Kant, there is no duty except to your higher self. So any duty you have, other duties you have to your superiors, to your country, to your nation, right? These patriotic duties, for Kant, are subservient, should be subsumed to the highest duty, which is the duty to your higher self, right? So the only person who has authority over you is your moral self, right? That is the law that we ought to always follow. And if that means breaking the law of the land, you break the law of the land. Right? So let me be clear, right? Kant would be definitely for any type of civil disobedience. He would be for any type of treason of the country if it meant going against your higher self, right? Kant would be for treason, for civil disobedience, because the higher law is never the law of the land. It's always the inner law. And this is very interesting, right? Especially in our day and age, right? Where often there is a dilemma. Right? Should I keep the law of the land, right? And therefore not help certain people, or maybe, not help, right? Maybe withhold my help from people who I'm not legally allowed to help, or should I follow my own moral law, right? The moral law, and break the law of the land, right? So this is interesting. So Kant seems very kind of, bourgeois, but actually he's incredibly revolutionary, right? So I hope you got that. Okay, so anyways, let's get into the text for today. So first thing he's gonna do, I'm just gonna summarize the argument in this first section, and then we'll go in the quotes, and then I'll give some examples, right? That's what we're gonna do for the first section. So in essence, Kant is going to now argue for the fact that we are not just made for happiness, right? Remember, he's thinking of Hobbes, he's speaking to Hobbes, he's responding to Hobbes, and he's saying, no, we are not just animals that are thinking of our own happiness. We have a higher sense, right? We have a sixth sense, right? Beyond the five senses, which are we have a sixth sense, which is the moral sense. So of course he has to argue for this, right? He can't just say, oh, we are moral beings, we are higher than the animals. He has to argue for this. So he's going to do it as follows. So follow the argument. He's going to say, okay, let's look at any type of organism that is created, right? Let me make sure everybody's with me. Are you all with me? Can you hear me? Put your hand in the screen. No? Okay, thank you. Okay, so I'm just making sure that I'm getting little messages about breaking out, things like that. So it's making me nervous. Okay, back to the argument. So he says this, any organism, so let's take any organism that has been created, right? We know, and this is true, every organ in this organism has a purpose, right? Is that clear so far, right? Let me go back to my gallery. Are we all good that put your hand, right? If you're following, every organ, right, is going to have a purpose, okay? So then he continues and he says, all right, so let's consider a human being, right? And let's consider that this human being was made for just happiness. And this is what he says. If we were made for just happiness, then why, oh why, were we made with reason? Okay, that's the main issue. Let me say it again so you can write it down, right? If we were made just for happiness, then why were we created with reason? Because you will find out, and I'll give you examples, that reason constantly gets in the way of our happiness, right? Reason is not interested in our happiness. It's that voice which is going against your happiness for the sake of something more. And so he deduces from that because we have this voice which ruins everything, that surely there is a higher purpose that this voice is trying to, raise us to. And therefore he says, we were made for more than happiness. Okay, so here's the order of the argument. Number one, every organ has a purpose. Number two, if we were made for happiness.
Professor, we missed that, sorry. it froze on the first.
Pretty choppy, yep.
Yeah.
Okay, let me say it again. Oh my God. Okay, let me say it again. The four points, right? So number one, thank you, Sanchez. Number one, every organ has a purpose, right? Number two, if we were made for happiness, then why were we made with reason? That's the second point. Third point, because reason always goes against our happiness, right? So if we were made for happiness, it would have been enough to make us just with instinct. But we have reason, which goes against happiness. Therefore, last point, we must have been made for something higher than happiness, which reason is pointing us to. Okay, let me make sure everybody got that. Did everyone get this argument? Put your hand in the screen if you're with me. Does anyone need me to repeat this? Okay, all right. So continuing. All right. So in essence, that's the argument, right? So let's look into the quotes, and then I'll give you some examples so you get what he's saying here. All right. So I start on page 8, in the 1 to 3rd paragraph in the Natural Constitution. Who is with me? Put your hand on the screen. 3rd paragraph, page 8 in the Natural Constitution. Okay. Thanks. Okay. In the natural constitution of an organized being, i.e., one suitably adapted to the purpose of life. Let us take as a principle that in such a being, no organ is to be found for any end unless it be the most fit and the best adapted to that end. Okay, so if we are a being, an organism, every organ has a purpose. That's what he's saying here, right? Now, he says, if that being's preservation, welfare, or in a word, its happiness were the real end of nature, in the case of a being having reason, then nature would have hit upon a very poor arrangement in having the reason of the creature carry out the purpose. In other words, if the goal of our lives were happiness and we were made with reason, then it's an absolute disaster how nature made us, right? Because reason basically sucks at getting happiness, right? So if we were made for happiness, then nature created us with this extra organ, which ruins everything. And that can't be the way nature works, right? There is a reason for this organ, which for Kant is to elevate us above the mere quest for happiness, right? Okay, everybody got that quote? At least you'll have understood one quote from Kant. Put your hand on the screen if you understand the quote fully. Okay, good. All right. Very good. Okay, so then he continues, right? And he says, he explains again, right? Reason is very bad at this. It's not, this is on the page 9, right? Reason just, and so let's find an example of this, right? And then we'll go into the notion of love. Here's an example. I'm trying to think of a good example. Yeah, this one's classic. Okay, here's a classic one. Actually, this will be a great example of how sometimes instinct or instinct hides behind the garb of reason. So you're gonna see how it's not easy sometimes to distinguish whether it's instinct guiding you or reason. But let's take the example of the following. So suppose I want you to all imagine a crush you have right now, except you, Rudolph. You have no crush. Right.
That's my crush.
You're not allowed to have a crush. But the rest of you, yes. Imagine a crush that you have right now, and imagine you're sitting in a restaurant or bar with friends, and all of a sudden that crush comes into the room. And that crush is alone. And that crush, your friends are telling you, oh, they just broke up. They just broke up with their boyfriend or girlfriend. And then they're nudging you. They're like, come on, go up and talk to them, blah, blah, blah. And now you're sitting and you're probably hearing 2 voices, right? So what is the voice of instinct going to, or actually, let me ask you this. How many of you would go up to the crush? Let's do it like this. So put your hand on the screen if you would go up to the crush and make a move. Okay, Suleimanov, Garcia. All right, how many of you would not go up to the crush? Put your
Sorry,
hand.
Professor, I didn't hear the question unnecessary. I mean, like the explanation, like.
Okay, Sanchez, don't interrupt me all the time.
Sorry.
If you didn't hear, try to catch up. So I'm gonna ask the question again, or you can put in the chat. Okay, if you have if you're lagging behind, I can try to respond then. Okay, so how many of you would not go up to the crush? I'm curious. And there cannot be middle paths. Okay, Fatakov, Mark, are you saying you wouldn't go up to the crush? I see a hand. Yes, okay, good. Okay, and the rest of you, what about the rest of you? I don't see people. Celia, Pierre, who's Alexandra? Okay, scenario is this. The crush is there single and they just broke up with their boyfriend, and I'm asking how many of you would go up, how many of you would not go up? Okay, so all right, so we got a few. So let's start with those of you who would go up. Suleimanov, tell us, why would you go up? What's your argument? What are you thinking?
I mean, I just know myself, and I mean, I know if I liked a girl and I saw that she was like single, I'm not the type of person to wait around until someone else goes up to her.
Okay.
It's just
Okay.
like it's like I'm not gonna, if I take every opportunity I have, so if I don't get the opportunity now, I'm eventually gonna lose it, and then I'm gonna regret it later on. So
Okay, sounds good. Excellent.
I'm like
All right. So let's ask the class. Is Suleimanov thinking, is it instinct speaking or reason speaking? Put it in the chat. What do you think? Is he working from a place of instinct or from a place of reason? Okay, Dabi says instinct. Anybody else? Oh, few people say reason. Interesting. Donald, let's see. Noble, why do you say he's working from reason? I'm curious. Yeah, mixed feelings in the class, Suleimanov. Noble, tell us, why do you say reason? I'm curious.
I say reason because it may not be wild to him because it's who he is and that's something that he would do. So off of his own reason, he think that that's a good thing to do. So
okay, good. You're enabling me to clarify something. So reason is not thinking things through, right? I'm reminding you this, right? That's what Kant calls understanding, right? So your instinct can be smart. Your instinct be like, let me see what would be the best thing for me, right? So your instinct can go through a thought process, right? Reason, remember, has nothing to do with thought process. It's not the brain. It's a different dimension, right? So does that make sense, Noble? Do you see how what you're saying is actually still instinct, but it's a thought through instinct? It's an intelligent instinct. Do you follow?
yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, great. So both, Sanchez. No, there is no both things going on. So in general, so Suleimanov has a very well developed instinct. I will predict that he will be a happy person, right? He will find happiness, and Kant would agree this is someone who will find easily happiness, right? Excellent. Now, few of you said you wouldn't do it. So I'm curious. I think it was Fatakov and it was Mark. Let's start with Mark. Mark, why wouldn't you go up? Let's see how they are thinking. Mark, are you there?
Yeah.
Okay,
I just probably wouldn't be ready at the moment, maybe, or it depends like on my mood in that moment.
okay, all right.
Or
So,
probably most likely it'd be like new information, so I probably have to like kind of I probably want to be like in my best state when I approach.
oh, got it. Okay, so is he working from instinct or reason? Let's see, you can put it in the chat. Instinct or reason for Mark? He's thinking, I need to, this is new information. I need to process it. I need to have a good plan. I need to have a good strategy before I do this. Instinct or reason? Let's see. I don't see anything in the chat. Why? I need some responses. Okay, we got everybody thinks it's reason. Okay, does anyone think it's instinct? No? Okay, y'all are still making the same mistake, right? Even if he's thinking it through, what's his goal? Ask yourself this, what's his goal? Is his goal happiness or is his goal something else, which we don't know yet. We haven't figured it out yet, right? Do you see how as long as you're thinking about what's the best thing for me, right? He's thinking, what's the best strategy? I'm not in the best state. So the instinct, again, can go through a thought process. The instinct can be smart. Remember, reason has nothing to do with the brain. Are you following me, everybody? That this is, that even if he's thinking it through, trying to be smart about it, it's still instinct. Do you see? Put your hand on the screen if you're following. Okay, don't mess this third one up. Let's see, who else was going up? There was someone else going up. Tan, was it you who went up for the crush? I forgot. Who was the second person who said they would go up for the crush? Do you remember yourself? Oh, Garcia, go ahead, Garcia. Tell us why you would go up. Let's see if we have a different scenario.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right. So the reason why I said I would go to the crush is because I believe in taking chances in relationships. I believe that taking chances like what Suleiman said, if you don't take those chances, you tend to go back and to like look back and get really upset about it. So I believe in taking chances, and honestly, there's really nothing you could lose if you get rejected, or if you get, you're basically gaining something at that point, even if it's a crush.
Excellent. Okay, you're a follower of Rumi, I see. Taking chances, taking a big leap. Okay, instinct or reason, guys? Instinct or reason? Put it in the chat. Instinct. Debbie says instinct. Oh, you have been well diagnosed. Okay, again, another person who will be happy, who will find happiness very quickly. Let me try one last person. Fatakov, you said you wouldn't go up. Why? Still, there's not yet, we have not found yet a rational person in this class. So Fatakov, let's see what you say. Fatakov, go ahead. Why wouldn't you go up? I'm curious.
I guess it would probably be based on the fact that, if my friends say, she just broke up, and obviously from a reasonable standpoint, I would give her time to have the healing process over the previous breakup before trying to enter into a relationship.
Okay, so what's doing the thinking for Fatakov? Instinct or reason, and why? Let's see you in the chat. What do you think? Gosh, I pinned. Let's see. We have instinct. We have reason. Oh my, wait. Who's? Oh, sorry. Reason. Anybody said instinct? Okay. Yes, you're correct. It's reason. Why? Why is it reason, Donaldson? Go ahead.
I think it's reason because Ilya is trying to do the right thing. He doesn't want to hurt this person. And I think while it's his crush and he obviously desires her, he's choosing to attempt to be moral in this situation rather than get what he wants, which I think is the why question that we need to ask when we're considering someone's instincts.
Yes, okay, right, absolutely, right. So Fatakov here is not thinking of his happiness. In fact, he's going against his happiness. Are you seeing that, right? This is a perfect example. His happiness, as Suleimanov and Garcia know, right, is to take a leap of faith, to take a risk, to make a move, because, hey, that's how you get people. This is the right moment, right? This is the perfect moment, in fact. They're very smart in their thinking. They're correct. She's vulnerable. She or he is vulnerable, or they, let's go with they're vulnerable, right? There's some, there's a move, a moment, right? This is the right moment. But Fatakov, you seem to be going, oh, unhappy man, right? Against your own happiness, right? So this is for another reason, right? In this case, this is she needs more time, whatever, right? So are you guys seeing, okay, so this is a good example, right? Of how reason goes against our happiness. And probably Fatakov will take a little longer to be happy than Suleimanov and Garcia, right? Because it's not a priority, right? So are you all following that, what's going on here, right? Make sure your hand is in the screen so I know you're following. Okay, so that's the idea, right? So you have a good example now. Now, of course, we still don't know, right? We still don't know what is, so we know the distinction between happiness, reason and instinct. Reason is interested in something else than our happiness. We don't know yet what exactly, but we know for sure instinct is interested in happiness and reason has a higher purpose, right? And very often, as in the case of poor Fatakov, right? The reason will go against your happiness. You'll miss a chance, right? You'll miss an opportunity. For sure, someone else will go there quickly. Suleimanov will beat you to it, right? Suleimanov and Garcia will beat you to it, right? So that's the issue, right? And this is why Kant says, right, that there is, right, that reason goes against our happiness, and there are sometimes or often, most of the time, goes against our happiness, and therefore there must be another purpose, which is what we need to figure out now, right? So the next part of the course, we'll do a little bit on love now, but the next part of class, we're going to try to figure out, what does the voice of reason stand for? What is it saying? What is it proposing as a higher goal than happiness, right? What is this higher goal, right? Goal. So that's what we're going to try to figure out. But for now, let's go quickly. Actually, let me give you one last example. This one is trickier. And we can only resolve it, actually, that one, when we get to the end of the second lecture. You will not yet know the answer, but let me throw this out. So here's a scenario we'll talk about at the end of the lecture. A little less selfish scenario. This is, you have a big test, a final which is worth 60 to 70% of the grade. Your professor is a robot who has no heart or feelings. There is no talking to them, just so you know. And so you have this final and your whole grade depends on it. And the night before you're cramming, you're studying, and your best friend from childhood, you've known them forever, they come to you in tears and they say, I have just lost my parent. It's a tragic accident. I absolutely cannot focus on studying. Can you please? And if I fail this class, it's going to be terrible consequences. I will fail. They lost a parent. They lost a family member. They died. Somebody died in their family, right? So, and if I don't pass this exam, I will fail the class. My GPA will go down, and I will lose the scholarship. So, and let's imagine it was the Excelsior scholarship that if you mess that up, you have to pay back everything. So they're in a terrible situation beyond words, and they're asking, can I please tomorrow cheat off of you, right? Now, let me ask you the question. How many of you would let them cheat and how many of you wouldn't? So let's start with how many of you would let them cheat, hand in the screen. Okay, let's see. I need to see everybody vote for this one. So I have 1, that's it? 2, just 3, 3. Oh, I see Debbie. 4, Garcia, 5. Okay. All right. How many of you would not let them cheat? Suleimanov, Rudolph, Fatakov. Okay, we have like a 50%. Okay, I'm just curious. Let's ask. Let me ask one of you why you would let them cheat. First of all, who was it? I'm forgetting who. Whoever you would let them cheat, just speak up. Who were you? I forgot. Garcia, you would let them cheat, correct? Okay, Garcia.
The reason why, I'm sorry. Yeah. The reason why I would let them cheat is because it's another situation of basically nothing's affecting me. It's another situation of that, in my opinion. If I let the person cheat, it benefits them. And if they get caught, it's on them. So overall, because I don't really see an issue in regards to me, I'm basically just helping someone just in regards to my own will. I understand that they're having a hard time too, so I also feel bad. And I feel like it does help them in some sort of way, at least gives them some sort of relief if it does, work out.
Okay, excellent. Now, instinct or reason? Put it in the chat. Instinct or reason? Let me see. Where's my chat? Donald says instinct. Okay. Why do you say that, Donaldson?
Well, I think I know the answer that would, get you to, like my voice of reason tells me that, cheating is wrong, and that's that.
Yes, but why is cheating wrong? That's what I want to know. Is it just maybe it's just society, your parents who brainwashed you? Why is it wrong?
Well, I mean, like I told you that I would let them cheat because I just know that's the type of person I am, and
Okay,
like
so
I don't care about morals in that situation.
Okay.
I would let my friend cheat because
So you
that's
have
how I treat my friends.
voice, right? You have a voice saying don't cheat, but I'm asking, right? My question to that would be if maybe it's just the voice of your education, right? By the way, my father, it was really funny. He used to teach, he used to be kind of an international lecturer. So he ended up in the Soviet Union when it was still communist. And it was so interesting because he said, when I was teaching there, so this is during the communist rule, when it was still the USSR, he said people would just openly cheat. And I was like, what the hell? Like he would go crazy. People would just like blatantly cheat. And so he asked, and these were, very sophisticated people, officials. And he was like, what is going on? So he asked one of them, he's like, what are you doing? And he's like, well, this is communist Russia. We have been taught to share everything. He was not even even kidding. He was like, we're just used to sharing everything. This is socialism. So it's natural for us to share information, right? So in certain contexts, in certain worlds, cheating is morally okay, right? Because it's about sharing information. So why is Kant, well, we don't know yet. I haven't told you yet, right? I'm just asking. So you're sensing maybe it's instinct, and it sure does sound like instinct, right? But we don't know why it's reasons. Here's why it's instinct, by the way. This is a new thought. Make sure you jot this down. He's thinking, and notice he's not thinking about his own happiness this time, right? Garcia is not only thinking of himself, right? Garcia in this context is thinking of the happiness of the other person. So that sounds beautiful. That sounds almost moral. But again, Kant would say, he's still thinking about happiness, meaning he's still on the level of instinct. So make sure you write this down, that when Kant is talking about instinct, it's not only my happiness, it can also be about the happiness of others, right? The fact that you care about the happiness of others doesn't make you moral. Let me emphasize that, right? Let me say that again. The fact that you care about the happiness of others doesn't make you moral. For example, if your thug best friend comes to you and says, hey, we're about to rob a bank, it would really, really make me happy if you drove us there. You would be making them happy, but committing a terrible moral mistake at the same time, right? So happiness, whether it's my happiness, whether I'm thinking of the happiness of others, Kant says you're still not on the moral high ground, right? And we don't yet know. Right now, I'm just curious, those of you who said you wouldn't let them cheat, Rudolph, I remember you, go ahead and tell me why you wouldn't let them cheat. I'm curious.
It's a quagmire for me as well as it was for Ilya, because you said that he's still after love, even though it's a different kind of happiness. My contribution to that was, aren't we contradicting ourselves here, believing that Kant on one side puts the virtue of love and happiness on the same level with the virtue of honor, and on the other side says that it is for us bad to achieve these virtues. I look at this very similarly in the context of the cheating situation here, where, yeah, I love the guy, he's a very, very good friend, but I would find certainly a logical reason and have the communication and the conversation with the individual as to why it would be better just to go in with as much as he knows and do his best. That is a true reflection of the education, versus cheating is really the undermining of any kind of logic.
All right, so you have some argument, right, which is kind of even going beyond your feelings of love, right? And let's be clear, right? Kant is saying basically we have sometimes the moral duty takes you beyond your feelings, right? And this is why sometimes it goes even against your sympathy, right? Your sympathy for the other person is overridden, you override that with a higher purpose. So this brings us into the quick discussion on love, right, which he does in this section, and then we'll go and talk about what does reason really stand for. We don't know yet, but for now, love, right? Let's go to this text. This is a few pages down from where we were. Page 12, okay, last paragraph of page 12. Let me make sure everyone's with me. I'm starting on the last paragraph, undoubtedly. Who is with me? Wave at me. Okay, thanks. Okay, so undoubtedly, so here he's going to distinguish. Let me summarize first, and then we'll go into the text. He's distinguishing between two loves, two kinds of way we love. One way is instinctual, right? And one way is going to be a rational way of loving, a moral way of loving, because he's very clear that love is not necessarily moral. The feelings of love we have are not necessarily moral feelings. These feelings can lead us to kill. They can lead us to kill others. They can lead us to kill ourselves. They can lead us to cheat, right? So he's clearly aware that our feelings cannot be trusted, right? And we'll talk about, by the way, when we get to Kierkegaard is going to get angry with Kant about that. He's going to be like, what do you mean our feelings can't be trusted? Our feelings are important. But Kant really kind of, what's the word? doesn't have much respect for feelings, because he realizes our feelings can lead us to do terrible things. We cannot trust our feelings. So he's going to talk about two kinds of love, and I'm going to read, and you're going to tell me at the end which one you think is a love from instinct and which one you think is a love for reason. So here I am. Undoubtedly, in this way also are to be understood those passages of scripture which command us to love our neighbor and even our enemy. So here he's talking about love, but clearly by alluding to that passage in scripture, we know he's going to talk about a love which is difficult, the love of the enemy. This is nothing to do with feelings, right? So he continues, for love as an inclination cannot be commanded, but beneficence from duty, when no inclination impels us, and even when a natural and unconquerable aversion opposes such beneficence, is practical and not pathological love. So in other words, there's love as an inclination, meaning we feel love, right? And then he talks about beneficence, which is another type of love where we don't necessarily feel like doing it, but it's a different type of love, right? So inclination versus beneficence. And then he continues and says, this love, this beneficence is practical and not pathological love. So there's two kinds of love, practical love, pathological love. So then he continues, he defines practical love. He said, this love, practical love, resides in the will and not in the propensities of feeling. So it has to do with you choose to love versus you feel like loving, right? It relies in principles of action and not in sympathy. And only this practical love can be commanded. Okay, so between practical and pathological, which one is connected to instinct and which one is connected to reason? So I guess let me ask you like this to make it easy. Practical love, instinct or reason? You can put it in the chat. Practical love, instinct or reason? Let's see what the vote is. See if you got it. Okay, Rudolph says reason. Who else? Reason, reason, reason. Okay, great. You got it, right? Absolutely. Right? Practical love is you choose to love, right? No matter what. It has nothing to do with the other person. It has nothing to do with how you feel. You're choosing to love because something in you tells you is the right thing to do. The other type of love is you just, whatever your feelings say, you go in that direction or that direction, right? Person is nice, you love them. Person is evil, you hate them, right? You feel like loving them, you get with them. You stop loving them, you leave them, right? So you have all of these. So that's the main difference, right? So I'll give you an example, also a concrete example, right? Suppose, and we'll end with that, right? Suppose you've been married for maybe several years, right? You have some kids, you have, your wife is okay, she's nice, but whatever, it's fine, you're happy, you're okay. And then one morning in the office comes in your soulmate. It's clear, it's your soulmate, right? You see them, the way they walk, the way they talk, how they behave, everything in you is screaming soulmate. And now you're thinking, oh my God, I missed my soulmate. And so now you're going to have a decision to make, right? Now, tell me, you can raise your hand on this one. What would instinct suggest you do? Let's see if I have any hands. Okay, Donaldson, go ahead.
Instinct would tell us to do what makes us happy, and I think we would leave our wife and attempt to pursue the soulmate.
Exactly, right? Because you're thinking not only of your own happiness, you're thinking of the happiness of your soulmate, right? You might even be thinking to a certain degree, I've heard this argument, this will make my wife happy because, I'm not really her soulmate either, right? And then, the kids don't, will be happy too because they deserve to be, they don't deserve to be in a situation where I am pining over this other person, right? So, but notice the argument is all about happiness, right? So even if you're thinking of other people's happiness, there's still a low moral ground for Kant, right? Now, what would reason say and why? Sanchez, you want to respond to that question?
Yeah, sure. There was some stuff before that I want to talk about, but I'll stick to this instead. So yeah, so reason would say it's like more of a logical way of pursuing the love. Like if you have a soulmate, you want to do everything for them, so that's instinct. You're loving them, it's open, selfless, and everything. But when you're trying to think, when you're using your brain, you're in the terms that Hobbes used, the wolf inside of you is gonna try to like fight against that, or it might be channeled different ways. Like, for example, there's more than just the natural instinct to love, because there's also other things like the pleasures and one, or the lesser love, or what we learn in the symposium, the common love. So like, it's like that. There's different layers to it, and we have to be able to be open to the more open and broad and like healthier love that's the more harmonious and less of choosing things, more of just being open, like selfless about it.
Okay, good. Except be
Yeah.
careful, right? Be careful that you're not thinking when it comes to reason, right? It's just another voice that you're hearing, right? And of course, the
Right.
voice of reason would say, no, you stay, because
Yeah,
there's
yeah,
a higher purpose, right? So,
Yeah.
and of course, we don't yet know what is this higher purpose, right? We have to
Mm.
figure out now. The next step in our whole demonstration will be to figure out what
Oh, I
does
froze
reason
again.
say, right? What does reason
Hello?
say? Sanchez, you're speaking too much. Mute yourself. Okay. Yes. Right. And yes, my connection is unstable. I don't know why. Whatever. Okay. So let me repeat that. Right. So now the next step, right? Make sure this is what we're going to do in the next 45 minutes after the break. We have to figure out, we know what instinct sounds like. We know what instinct stands for now pretty clearly. Even if instinct is thinking things through, even if instinct is calculating and thinking of the best strategy, instinct is always thinking of happiness. Make sure you write this down, either my happiness or the happiness of others. Reason, on the other hand, seems to be thinking about something else altogether, but we're not clear yet on what reason is, how reason is working. What is it thinking about? What does it stand for? Right? So we have to wait until we get to the second part here of the reading in order to figure that out. Okay, so we're going to take a quick break, exactly 2 minutes until 4:10, and then we'll get into that passage. So I'll see you in a couple minutes.